I think part of the reason I went to the awards ceremony is because I got the terrible Sundance flu and I was sick the whole time. So I was like, I have to go see people. I'd like to thank the programmers. So I went with my wife. We parked illegally and I was very distracted the whole time. And the first award gets mentioned, which is the directing prize. And I'm literally texting with my mom, and my wife grabs my knee and she's like, dude, they're about to say your name. And I'm like, what? And I finally paying attention. And then they announced that I won the best director. And I was just like, for motherfucker, like what, what is my life? This is so insane. This is so crazy. And then our car got towed. So like post winning, we had to go pay a bunch of money to get our car untowed. It was fun. It was amazing. It was an incredible experience.
Welcome to More Than a Movie, a podcast that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at your favorite movies. I'm your host, Alex Fumero. Last season, we did a deep dive on American Me. This season, I'll focus on a different movie each episode, feature interviews with the biggest actors, directors, writers, and producers behind them, and tap into the history of Latinos in film. That voice you just heard at the top belongs to director Alessandra La Corazza. Her feature film debut, In the Summers, which centers on two sisters navigating their loving but volatile father during their yearly summer visits with him, premiered at the 2024 Sundance Film Festival and won the Grand Jury Prize, as well as the award for directing, screenwriting, and editing for La Corazza. In June 2024, Music Box Films acquired the U.S. distribution rights to the film, planning a theatrical release in this summer. And the star of this critically acclaimed film is an unlikely leading man, René Pérez Joglar, a.k.a. Residente, who is better known for his pioneering work in the alt-reggaeton duo Calle 13. René's lyrical abilities are without question, but I think many were surprised by how moving and natural he was in front of the camera in what was his first starring role on screen. René, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here on More Than a Movie. I've been a fan for, well, if I say how long, we're both going to feel old, but a long time. And when I saw that you were starring in this movie, I was so excited to see this kind of jump. You're obviously an incredibly talented musician and lyricist, but to see you in this kind of acting role was a really exciting new kind of adventure. And I wonder if we could maybe start with you talking about like why did you want to try your hand at acting? Like why start acting?
Well, thank you for having me here first. And yeah, like, it was my decision, but at first I wasn't thinking about acting. Like the way I started, and it wasn't my idea to act. I didn't want to be an actor, even though I enjoy more film than what I'm doing now as an artist, as a musician, being on stage and having tours. And I enjoy more film because it's my dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started as an art student and studying animation and 2D, 3D animation. And then I started to write my own videos. Actually, when I left, with the Calle 13 project, I always put my ideas there, and sometimes I edit myself the videos and stuff. But with the Residente project, I started to direct everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Visually and to understand what is a production and to have like big crew because, well, my videos are big, most of them. And the latest are even more, And because of that, during the pandemic, I decided to write a film. And I started to write an idea because, I was thinking, bro, like I always wanted to be on film and to be a director and to write my ideas, to write a script. And I haven't done it in 20 years of career, and when I'm going to do it. And it was the perfect moment because I wasn't on tour. Nobody, I was scared inside the house. And because of that, I started to write a film. And I started to write this film with Alex Dinelaris, who wrote Birdman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one day when we were like in the meetings writing together, he gave me a script, and it was the In the Summer script. And he told me like, can you act? I don't know, like you should read the script. I'm producing the script. You should be part of this. And I was like, bro, I'm not an actor. And actually, what I want to do is direct. But he told me no, but try it. And every time that for me, it takes me time to read and to read scripts. And every time that I went to his house, he talked to me. At the end, he told me, "Did you read the script?" And I, no, not yet, man. Like that.
Uh-huh.
And one day he told me, "Man, you have to tell me because we have to." I say, "Man, yeah, I do it, but I haven't read the script, but I'm gonna do it. Like, it's okay, it's fine."
But he'd already told you what the movie was about at that point.
Yeah. He told me everything, and I liked the idea, and also I gave the script to my girlfriend and to Eric, who works with me. Like everyone told me, like it's a great script,
Mm-hmm.
So I trusted it, and I trust my girlfriend a lot too. Like she reads a lot, and she read it, and she told me, "Oh, I really liked this," and I was like, "Okay." So I said yeah, and then I read it. Like after I don't know a month, I read it, but really quick without really understanding everything. And then I didn't touch it anymore till a week before the movie.
I want to talk about your process. Your character in the Summer suffers from a couple of different issues, right? He has bipolar syndrome and he suffers with, we could say alcoholism, or we can say substance abuse, but especially drinking. Given that in real life, you're not a guy who has destroyed his life with drugs and alcohol, right? Who has had quite a good career and good relationships, and who is a solid, sounds like incredibly present father in your kid's life. How do you approach the character work? How do you approach getting into this role that does have some real distance from your own experience? And not being a method actor, I'm curious what that process looks like.
Well, I passed through different things in my life. Like I mixed my stepfather. He was very like the character in a lot of ways, and he treated me that way, and even worse. And with my dad, I have a different relationship. I'm not going to talk about him. We're cool and everything, but I took things from him too. And I think the character is a narcissist. And I think that the character has a lot of things. Like he feels sometimes inferior, and that's why he has a competition with Violeta most of the time. And he's also in a depression, but he doesn't know it. And so I sat down with my acting coaches, Heidi and Johnny, and they're a couple. And I started to study the whole script. But the cool thing is that Alessandra, wisely, she started it with me with scenes that they were very simple, like the simple ones, so I can get to start and you go slowly. But the third day I already had like a more complicated scene. So, I got it. Like in the third day, I was like, okay. And then the second week, it was done. I knew what I needed to do. Because I understand shooting, I understand cameras, I understand editing, I understand all the process behind the film. But I've never been an actor, so I studied the script, and we started to separate every summer. This summer, what does he want in this summer? And first summer, he wants to be connected with them and ganárselas,
to win them over.
They can be to win them over, And then in the second one, he started to use a little bit more alcohol and more this, and you can see he's developing, And in the last summer, that's when I'm just with my daughter. Like only one of the daughters came and visited me, and I prepared myself for every summer and for every situation. And when I got into the scene, I was ready. And it's important to memorize everything. But for me, that was the easiest part because that's what I do.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have, how many songs do you have memorized?
Brian, I do it for time. Like when I'm going to go on tour in September, and I have to memorize the whole 2 hours and a half of a show. It's like a monologue. And the fact that I just needed to memorize, I don't know, 2 pages, that for me was easier than performing, and in that sense. But the difficult thing was to really connect with the character and connect with the situation, And sometimes also Alessandra was very nice, with actors, and she was letting me also improvise sometimes. But as long as I maintained the idea of the scene, and also I had to give the other character the ending lines so they can know the cues. So I started to be better at that later on in the shoot.
I'm curious, with a scene like the car accident that's so intense and so emotional, have you ever experienced anything like that level of trauma? Like, how do you prepare for something that's so high stakes? Because again, it's an incredibly grounded performance that you give. Like, it doesn't feel pushed, which is really hard, I think, for especially a first-time actor and somebody who was like, I just want to be a director, actually. So I'm wondering, in a scene like that really needs such big emotional stakes, where there's a risk of sort of overacting, how do you make sure that what you're doing feels honest?
I've never passed through that either, like something like that in my life. Like, I passed through car accidents, but
not like that.
Mild, yeah, not like that. And yeah, it was difficult, and it was a difficult scene. And actually, it's way shorter in the cut. They cut a lot. Like for me, and I understand why they did it. It was too long, but I did the whole thing one shot, and that was difficult to do, because you pass through different moments and emotions. Like, I had to do the whole thing, and it was like, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, or took a long time. And I put myself in the position that is my son, and also I lost two of my brothers the year before, and so I was thinking about them too. I was very connected, and I was very on the character. I'm very professional and very, how do you say, perfectionist with anything that I do. Like, when I'm writing, I want to do my best. Like, when I'm on tour, I want, like, to do my shows. If you go to one, they're gonna be sharp, And when I'm acting, I do the same. So I really got into the movie, and I was with the acting coaches every day, because I was shooting every day. So I shot, I finished at 8, came back to the house, practice for the next day. I didn't, sometimes people can say, oh, I know the lines and that's it. And it's no, I practiced the emotions. So for this, I got prepared. And
you had your coaches with you on set?
Yeah, they were on set. They let me. Like, I know a lot of directors, they don't like that because they want to direct you. In this case, and actually they helped me a lot with the script at the beginning and through the days before. During the shoot, I was okay. It was on me. Like, for the preparation, it was when I used them the most, And that scene, like, if you see the long take, I think it's beautiful because you see the whole changes, But yeah, it was too long. And there was a moment where you really feel like the whole drama, but also, like, with the edit, they did a great job because they maintained, nothing goes over, like too dramatic, or, you feel it. And that's why I think the movie is great. It's a beautiful film. It's a queer movie without being queer. It's a Latinx movie without being Latinx. You don't go over, It's not that the super melodrama and when I'm mad, I'm all the time mad. No, you feel it, but it's like with good taste, like well designed, that. So they did a great job in the edit too.
I'm also an excellent editor who seamlessly interjects commercial breaks into his podcast without pissing off any of the listeners, including the several people who gave me 1-star reviews precisely because they didn't like the commercials. We'll be right back. And we're back. I wanted to dive deeper into the performance of René, who is essentially a first-time actor taking on a huge part. many of the scenes feel restrained in ways that I'm glad, not to disparage our people, but like I think maybe telenovelas have had an effect on our gauge for drama, and a lot of times things can be really big. And even in scenes like when you're leaving the bar and you get physical with Violeta, like that's not over the top. Like your emotional delivery is not, or hers is not like melodramatic in any way.
No.
When rehearsing those kinds of physical scenes, what's the approach to getting physical in a scene like that with like a young person, knowing that like even raising your voice to your child is like unfathomable? Like how do you approach that?
Like, so we were like, I had a great relationship with them, and we were most of the time, believe it or not, we were joking. Then I told her like I'm gonna like how much I can push you because I can fake it. Like we talked about it before, and she was like, yeah, push me. And we had a good relationship. And after also, like I was like, are you okay? Like all the time. It was funny because you see me like that, and then it cut, and then like, hey, are you okay? Like it's like I was all the time taking care of that, but they were super okay, and for me it was, I had to concentrate, before every shot. I'm ADHD too, so it's difficult sometimes to concentrate, but I was able to find that place where I needed to be in order to do all of these scenes and to feel them, and I gave them different options too, like one more soft, one more like higher, another one that was more dramatic.
Yeah.
And they Alexandra, they choose wisely, and they choose the ones that I really like too.
I'm curious if you can tell us like why. I know part of it was Dina Lares was like, you should really do this movie. But once having read the script, like, why was this movie important for you to make? Like, what about this story felt necessary for you, especially someone who's a filmmaker who thinks about like why you need to be telling a story at a certain time?
Well, for me, the most important thing is that I knew that it was Alexandra. Like she was telling something and she was passionate about it. And when you have an artist like that, you just want to help. I was like, okay, what do I have to do? Like that doesn't happen often. And suddenly you find someone like you, like that's what I like to do. You find someone that wants to tell a story. It's not thinking about how much money it's going to make or how long it's going to be the film. She's thinking about telling a story, and it's her story, and it's very personal. And I was happy to be part of it and to portray her father, So it's a difficult thing to do. Like I was like, okay, I have to do this well. And we talked a lot in different scenes, like that car accident scene was tough for her. So I was asking her, like, you're right. Do you think it's okay if I do this? Like we always talk before every scene, but that's the main reason why I did it. And also because I'm directing myself. So I wanted to put myself in the actor's position. So now I know how it feels, certain things, and how I wanted to have mindset for my movie, and how much time I want to give actors to do their thing, instead of being like, because production is in a hurry, but I'm going to shoot thinking about that because I know how much it takes,
The movie won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance, most prestigious film festival in America. Were you at the festival?
Yeah, I went.
What was that like when you heard? Did you expect it?
No, I wasn't expecting it. Like when I watched the film on the theater the first time, and it's the first time in my life I ever watched a film that I am in theater. It was my first movie, and with a crowd and everything, this is a beautiful movie. Like at first I was worried about how people are going to take it because I didn't watch the whole film, like at the end, like the whole thing, never before going to the theater. I watched cuts of the film, but it wasn't completely done, and I never watched it all the way to the end. It just like the beginning, then all the end. And when I watched it there, the days before I went, I remember I was seeing other films that they had more budget, and looking good. And I was like, oh shit, like I know ours is super low budget. And so I was worried from that end. But when I watched it, I was like, no, this is a beautiful movie. Like, this is a good movie. I really like it. Like, and then I saw the crowd and I started to feel proud about it. And then I was like, maybe, I don't know, maybe we have a chance of winning something, but I didn't expect it. I was expecting more the audience award. I'm not saying that that's easier or not, but yeah, it's the audience that give you that. So I thought, like, I saw the audience. So I said, maybe they will vote for us. So I went to a few Q&As, to talk to the people and also to watch the audience. When I learned that we won the Grand Jury Award, I was like, what? Like I remember I was sick because everyone got sick in Sundance. And then someone told me that it's something that happens often. And my sickness went away. Like, I was like, what? I was so happy for Alexandra, it's her first film and she won also the Best Director. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I couldn't believe it. And then I saw the critics. The critics were so good, also about my acting, everyone's acting. I was so happy for everyone. Like, yeah, because I didn't expect that. So it was amazing. Like, I think it's a film that I can't wait to have the film, and also like in the theaters for people to watch, and also in any of the platforms,
Very cool. Well, I've been a fan for a long time, and I'm so excited to see this next chapter, man. You're a great rapper, great actor, and I'm sure you're going to be a great director too. So thank you so much for taking time to be here on More Than a Movie.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Renee. But don't go anywhere, film nerds. We're about to interview the Sundance-winning director of In the Summers, who based much of the film on her own life, right after this completely unrelated set of ads. We'll be right back. And we're back with the Sundance-winning queer Colombian-American writer, director, and editor whose work deals with personal and cultural memory, migration, alienation, community, resilience, all themes present in this film, and who based much of In the Summers on her own life, Alessandra Laco-Raza. More Than a Movie is a podcast that looks at the behind the scenes of the most significant moments in kind of Latino film history. And I think that this film winning the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance definitely qualifies in that historical ranking. But it really focuses on what it was like to be there. And I'd love to put the audience kind of working backwards, right? Like, in your shoes, the moment you were in that big room, you're sitting there, you have no idea what's going to happen. You probably don't expect to be called at all. So tell us about that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting it. And I think part of the reason I went to the awards ceremony is because I got the terrible Sundance flu and I was sick the whole time. So after my premiere, I was not able to see any movies, interact with any people. I just went to my Q&As, like, very sick with wearing a mask, and went back to bed. So I was like, I have to go see people. I'd like to thank the programmers. So I went with my wife. We parked illegally at the grocery store, and we bounced in a little late, and my mom was going towards the airport. So she realized when she got to the airport, she didn't have her ID. So I was the whole ceremony texting with my mom, trying to help her get a cab. So I was very distracted the whole time. And the first award gets mentioned, which is the directing prize. And I'm literally texting with my mom, and my wife grabs my knee and she's like, dude, they're about to say your name. And I'm like, what? And I finally paying attention. And then they announced that I won the best director. I throw my phone. I'm like, and we're high up. We're not expecting anything. So we're high up in the bleachers, basically.
Wait. Hold on. How did your wife know that they were about to say your name?
Because, I mean, there's a lot of coming of age stories, right?
Uh-huh.
And, the way they start describing every film, they kind of sound like they could be many versions of the films that played. But then they said something.
So she's like, this is definitely your movie.
Well, they said like the way they depicted queer representation. And then she's like, oh shit, this is you. And so they say my name, I throw my phone, I'm like bewildered. I'm like, never won anything on this level. I was not expecting it. I make my way down, had a body experience, completely. I don't even remember anything I said when I got the award. And then I go to the side and the programmers are like, hey, the press line is backed up. So can you just wait here? And I'm like, cool, the press line's backed up. I'm just going to wait here. They're going to announce the next prize. And of course, they announced the grand jury prize, and I also won that. And I was just like, "For motherfucker, like what? What is my life? This is so insane. This is so crazy." So we do that. We do the press, and then I have to go find my phone. It took me 10 minutes with a bunch of volunteers to find my phone because I threw it underneath these chairs and stuff. It was a vibe. And then our car got towed. So like post winning, we had to go pay a bunch of money to get our car untowed. It was fun. It was amazing. It was an incredible experience.
But I'm sure at that point you were like, I really don't give a shit.
Not at all. We were like at the tow place. They're like, we won Sundance. What the fuck? It was fine. It was fine.
Do you even remember because there's a press line, but you also have to like go on the stage and say something. And obviously you were not prepared. So do you remember what the hell you said?
Not even a little bit. No, not really. I think for the first one, I tried to thank all the crew and my incredible producers and the cast and everyone that worked so fucking hard on this film. And then I think the second one I dedicated to my mom, who's an immigrant mom who fought so hard for my sister and I to be in the US. And, it's really hard to be a parent, really hard to be an immigrant woman in the US in the 90s without any safety blanket. So I dedicated the second one to her, who was stuck at the airport and we were trying to get back.
Well, I want to get into, we're talking about your family. I want to get into the origins of this film. I have to say I found it very moving. It is a film that I feel like, without being on the nose or preachy, just kind of places you in the complicated circumstances of children who are raised by flawed parents and who themselves have to then figure out who they are as a result of maybe not having the kind of guidance that they wish they had. I'm wondering, how much of this comes from your real life? Why tell this particular story of this family?
Yeah, I mean, it is based on my upbringing to some extent. All the truths are real. Like there's an emotional and an honest truth that it stems from my life. Obviously, the characters became fictionalized and there's things that are not real. The whole last summer is completely made up. None of that happened. I actually always talk about it, how the film is actually a lot more hopeful and less sad than the real life. But it's based on my experiences with my beautiful and very flawed father. And my sister and I did spend our summers going back and forth and seeing him kind of only throughout that period and not really having a relationship with him outside of the periods we would go visit him in the summer. So that is based on truth. And I think my father was an incredibly smart person, like one of the smartest people I've ever met, IQ through the roof, and really battled a lot of demons. And so he was such a picture of this really complex guy who I never doubted his love for me ever. Even when he was saying fucked up shit, even when he was doing fucked up shit, even when he was putting our lives in danger, I never doubted that he loved me and respected me. But you also have to take the bad with the good. Growing up in the US, the representations I saw of Latin men tended to be either the immigrant father who battles, who has a hard time, but it has a heart of gold and is fighting really the tough fight to take care of his kids. Or you have the villainized drug addict, alcoholic father who beats his kids. And I really wanted to explore that gray area, that truth that lies in the middle of those two stereotypes.
Yeah, that really came across to me. I think one thing that really makes the film is that his love for the kids really comes across. His potential as like a human, as a father, is like almost constantly present, but it's very clear that it's almost like he gets possessed, right? Like he clearly deals with some addiction issues. His girls are coming to visit. He's trying to clean up the situation, and everything sort of feels manageable until the car scene where he says, I believe he says something like, "We're never going to stop again." And he just sort of puts the pedal to the metal. Can you talk us through that scene and what that scene was really about for you?
The no stopping game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that actually happened. For me, that scene is that, so my father, in addition to the addiction, also was bipolar. And I think sometimes those two things go hand in hand. There's like the mental health aspect and the addiction that you kind of self-medicate. And I think sometimes his idea of fun and adventure kind of short-circuited his brain with what was safe and acceptable behavior. And he has two daughters, one daughter that loved that fun and chaos and trusted him completely. And the idea of running red lights and jumping up on the curb was incredibly fun and adventurous. And he wanted to be that fun dad that took you on the adventures. And then he had the other daughter who was like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're going to get us killed." And living in that fear. And so for me, that scene is about seeing the two versions. The two girls kind of see two versions of him. And that's a scene where that's very clear. The fun, adventurous, loving dad and the dad that's going to get us killed exist both in that moment to the two girls. They're having completely different experiences of their father in that moment.
Yeah. And you kind of see also a bit of the naivete of the younger daughter who doesn't seem to be computing the danger, and the older daughter who very clearly knows what's going on.
Yeah. For me, the younger daughter, especially in those first few summers, she's the hope of the film.
Yeah.
She just sees his good side. She just sees his potential. She doesn't see any of the bad.
And I think maybe that's also why it felt so true to life, because yes, there's those two types of people who respond to chaos and alcoholism and addiction those ways, but also both of those characters can be part of us, right? Like, there's always the us that is hopeful, that wants the bright side things. That's like, maybe this time it will be different. He's so charming. He's my dad. He loves me. It must be different this time, And then there's the part that's always on guard. When Leo comes into play Violeta, you can see like this evolution around boundaries and her sort of ability to sort of share a space with him without all of the anger. And I wonder if you could talk about the evolution of that character and how they're able to sort of come to that dynamic with their father.
Yeah. So Violeta, after the car accident where she almost gets killed, decides that she wants to protect herself and doesn't come back. It's a form of self-preservation to stop seeing her father. Mm-hmm. But as the years goes on and she sees the damage that her younger sister Eva has gone through after that last summer she spent alone, I think it's her love for her sister that makes her be like, let's go back to see dad. I'm a grown up now. I'm an adult. Let's go back to see dad. Let's revisit, it's kind of the question is like, is forgiveness possible? Like that's how the summer for me starts. But Violeta also hasn't, she's also has part of her father in her. She hasn't dealt with any of her anger issues. She hasn't dealt with any of her trauma. So she goes into that summer thinking, I'm healed. I'm good. I'm going to go do this for my sister, take her for my sister, not realizing how it's going to affect her and the issues that it's going to bring up for her that are still unresolved in her psyche.
That's the summer that you were saying was fictionalized, that last one.
Exactly. Yeah.
What happened in real life?
Oh my goodness. In real life, Eva doesn't get to say goodbye to her father and he dies. So I, after many years, finally went back by myself. I'm the Violeta, by myself to go see my father. He was still deep in his addiction. And at that point, I would stay with my grandmother. I wasn't staying in his house anymore. I didn't feel safe. So he came to my grandmother's house to say goodbye and he had a massive heart attack. in front of me, and I had to do CPR, and my little sister was there with me.
Wow.
And then he died. And so then for me, it was seeing my younger sister come, not being able to say goodbye, not being able to have any closure, not being able to close the loop, and seeing how hard that was for her to then be in her grief. I mean, look, death is death. There's a lot of grief and everyone processes differently. And we spent a long time, and both of us in therapy, processing our own relationships with our father after the death. But there's something about that sudden death that also catches you off guard. My father was in his 50s. It was very early. Mm-hmm. We were young. And I was really fucked up. It was really fucked up. It was a lot of heartache. And I think seeing my sister not have that closure continues to break my heart.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. What did the process of making this film, how did that impact? Did it help in terms of healing from your experiences? Was it re-traumatizing in some ways? I'm curious, from a filmmaker's perspective, after going through what sounds like an incredibly traumatic experience, not only sort of in the long term, right, but in this short term instance that you just described, why then make a film that would likely unearth a lot of those memories?
I mean, maybe I'm a masochist is thing number one.
Okay, fair enough.
But I think I originally got the story idea talking to my sister after my father's death. This was probably 5-6 years after he passed away. And we were just recalling all the summers we spent with him. It was more like methodical. And there was something about that structure to me, to examine a father's life through the eyes of his kids who only see him sporadically, that I thought was really beautiful. And at that point where I was in my healing is, after my father died, I was incredibly angry at him. There was just a mess. There was just a fucking mess there. There was a mess with my younger sister, who was just the 2 years younger, and her trauma. It was just a mess. I was really upset. And it took me a lot of years to humanize him again, to understand that the traumas that I saw in my childhood as my traumas were our shared traumas. Like the car accident, for example, it wasn't until way after his death that I was able to put myself in his shoes and be like, oh, what would have it been like trying to drag your daughter from the car thinking she might be dead and trying to find help? That's got to fuck you up.
Yeah, just for the audience, could you just place us there? What is the car accident scene in the film, and what does it represent?
There's a scene a little bit more than halfway through where the dad is taking them on another adventure, and they get in the car and they're driving late at night, and he's messing with his Coke bag that he drops. And as he's picking it up, something flies in front of the car and he swerves to miss it. And in that process, he causes a pretty severe car accident in which one of his daughters is seemingly okay but injured, and the other one's completely unconscious, and we don't know if she's alive or dead. And he has to drag her out of the car. They're completely isolated. They're in the middle of nowhere. There's no cell service. There's no cell towers. And he has to carry them until, it cuts to black, and then we move forward. But for me, that's the moment of no return.
It's an incredibly effective scene. I mean, you're not sure if the Violeta character is going to survive. So you were saying, dealing with that instance, I imagine what you're telling me is that accident happened in real life. That was another autobiographical moment in the film.
Yes.
So using that instance, you're not only writing that, then you're recreating it as the director in that moment. What's that like for you?
That was the hardest scene for me to write and to film. It's the only scene really that always made me emotional, because I think there's still a lot of trauma there for me. Everything else feels separate. The characters feel like their own thing, and I have a lot of distance. But there's something about the car accident scene that still feels very raw. And I think part of it is because I was knocked unconscious. I had no memory. I had no ability to form any memories for 24 hours. My memory kept resetting, and I lost my sight for a while, but I have no memory of losing my sight. I was very mangled in that car accident. And we never talked about it because we're Latins and we just love to not talk about our trauma.
Yeah, checks out. 1,000%.
Yeah. So I had to recreate in my memory that didn't exist. I had to recreate the moment. So what did I recreate? I was like, we were in a car and we got in a car accident and then an ambulance came and we were taken to the hospital. And it was like, and then we were in Colombia, we're in the middle of nowhere. And then we got taken to hospital B and I woke up in hospital B. And so I had like rewritten this thing. And it wasn't until after my father died that I found out that, yes, we got in the car accident, but then the person we crashed into ran away and he was left by himself, thinking we were both dead with a broken arm, pulling us from the car and walking until someone pulled over to help him and take us to the hospital. And it was in that realization that I was like, oh, yeah, that was a traumatic event in his life as well. Yes, I almost died. Yes, I had all these traumas from it, but that was just as much his trauma, if not more. Especially now as a parent, I can't imagine going through that instance and thinking my kid is dead and carrying him, through the street until I find someone to help me. That moment that kind of shifted my whole perception of my father and made me want to understand our story through his lens.
It's amazing because this is part of what I think makes the film so impactful. So now you've won this grand jury prize at Sundance. You're playing a bunch of festivals. So then what's next for you and this movie?
I am really excited for this to reach as many people as it can. I think this is I just think this is a different way to tell Latin and queer stories. And I think it adds to both of those canons in an interesting way. And I'm excited for people to get to experience the film and to see the actors. I'm incredibly proud of the performances in this film. Renee is a force to be reckoned with. He is the true artist. I'm completely obsessed with him. And I think his performance in this film is really beautiful and heartbreaking. I'm excited for audiences to see that, as well as like all of the girls, like from Leo to Sasha to Drea to Maya to Luciana, Allison, like they're all really beautiful performances. And then our supporting cast with Leslie and Emma. Like I'm just proud. I'm really proud of the cast we put together for this.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for people to see it. And then I'm excited for more films that are queer and Latin to win these prizes and to be in the mainstream. I'm not sure this is going to be a mainstream movie, but I hope it opens more doors for more Latin queer creatives. And then I hope it springboards so I can make my next film.
Do you have another project like in the pipeline, or are you like, I need a break?
A little bit of both, but yeah, I'm actively writing and working on my next film, which is a military story that is going to be very different from In the Summers, but I'm equally excited about it.
That's great. I'm also equally excited about it. I'm so glad you came on. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, this was super fun. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Next time on More Than a Movie, we delve into the secrets of the movie universe with the director of Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. Featured in Variety's 10 Directors to Watch, my hermana from Miami, H. Alberto. More Than a Movie Season 2 was produced by Chloe Tagliagambe with the help of Reynolds Gutierrez and Veronica Hernandez in partnership with iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network. Hosted by me, Alex Fumero. Edited by Rose Reed and Chloe Tagliagambe with the help of Saida Quevedo. Executive producers are Carmen Graterol, Rose Reed, Isaac Lee, and me, Alex Fumero. Sound design by Gonzalo Messi. Original music by Golden Minds, Darko, and IM. Recorded at JTB Studios and Vaudeville Sound. Our executive producers at iHeart are Giselle Bances and Arlene Santana. For more My Cultura podcasts, listen to the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows.